So Jim, one of the developments in the industry that I am most interested in is this concept of device to device charging. So instead of having a standalone transmitter that's plugged into the wall or plugged into your computer, instead you can use your mobile phone, for example, to charge another mobile phone or other devices. So it's really exciting because it opens up a lot of new use cases and freedom. What's the story here? What's going on? How does this type of technology work?
Well, one of the things to think about is smartphones have now become totally ubiquitous. You have over a billion of them out in the marketplace. Batteries have been getting bigger and bigger over time. And now, most people can last through the day with their phone with its battery as is. And now all of a sudden that becomes an extremely large energy storage device that you're carrying with you all over the place. You may have other devices with you as well that may have much smaller batteries that may need a charge at an inopportune time. Isn't it great if you can use this thing that's with you 24/7 and turn that into a charger as well? So that's what's happened. It started a couple of years ago where reverse charging was introduced in the marketplace. I was highly skeptical of it because I thought, hey, who wants to go ahead and use something as critical as a phone for charging? But once again, I proved myself wrong, and the market's right in terms of picking what takes off. So you're seeing this happen at a much higher and brisker pace of adoption now, where people are liking this as a feature.
Yeah. Well, one thing I take from that, and we know, is the market's always right.
Yes.
The market decides which technology is right and wrong. And that's why I think it's so important to have mass production experience and get that feedback from customers. Otherwise, it's kind of navel gazing and guessing into the blue sky under where technology is. But back to the conversation of device to device charging, you really brought up an interesting concept to me. Mobile phones have consumed or absorbed so many different discrete pieces of technology. They've consumed, obviously, the phone call. They've consumed the texting or emailing mechanism of a PC. They've consumed the camera. They've consumed the MP3 player. And you have this all in one device. But one thing we usually think about our mobile phones as is a liability on charging. But now with the concept of device to device charging, it's actually consuming the power supply too. It's becoming the source of power for these other devices. So specifically, Jim, what types of devices can we charge from the back of our phone now and in the very near future?
Yeah. Now, in theory, you can charge other Qi certified devices because a lot of these reverse charging products are the reverse charging side of it is also Qi certified. So that makes it possible to go charge somebody else's phone. Now, I'm not sure if you're going to particularly want your phone draining that quickly with the power it requires, but it's a more opportune to have something like an earbud case where you have something that typically just takes a small amount of power, has a fairly small battery, and you can go ahead and charge it fairly quickly and get yourself going again. So that's a common use case.
Yeah, Jim, can we do a little bit of back of the envelope math here? And I know you're not prepared for this, but I'm confident you can do this for me. So you talked about, I'm not sure people want their phone draining that quickly. So you probably understand some of the economics of battery life in a phone. So can you talk about how much power your phone might be consuming doing normal functions like making a phone call or browsing the internet, and then compare it to how much battery your phone would be consuming when you are trying to charge another phone or your wearable device or your earbuds case?
Well, the way I think about it is just the battery's a reservoir, right? So, think about it as a bucket of water that you fill up to the brim. And of course, instead of water, we're talking about electronic charge in a battery, right? So if another phone wants to take it, I mean, essentially you're taking that bucket and you're pouring it into somebody else's phone. So, and it does it as a faster rate as, can be accepted, but you're going to drain your battery very quickly because most people are familiar with their phones charging in a couple of hours now. Some are quicker, some are slower. But even at a slower charging rate, that's still going to drain your battery pretty quickly. Something, a smaller device would work quite a bit better, but it's something that's going to be noticeable. And unless you're just trying to top somebody off to keep them alive, I wouldn't want to go much further than that.
Yeah. Okay. So when I'm just using my phone to check email, how much am I draining out of the reservoir to do that kind of a function for a few minutes?
Typically not that much. Right now the display takes a fairly large amount of the overall battery capacity because they're big screens now. They tend to be very bright. If you're outside in the sunlight, you have to overcome the ambient light that's outside. So if you're in a phone call, you'll tend to drain it much quicker. If you're just in receive mode, you also have Wi-Fi. That's another RF link that is lower than a cell phone, but that's going to also be draining. Bluetooth is also going to be draining. So you start adding up all of those, various applications. The software itself tends not to take that much energy, but display's a big one, and the radio links that your phone has in it, with the cell phone being the one because it's got to transmit, typically miles away.
Okay. So let's say I can talk on my phone, and I'm not looking at the stats here, but they usually say, 6 or 7 hours of talk time. Will I be able to charge someone else's phone for 6 hours? So can I charge, if it takes 3 hours to charge someone's phone at, 7, 8 watts, would I be able to charge 2 phones off of, consecutively? Will I have that much battery life, or will charging the phones at 7 or 8 watts diminish my battery in an hour?
It's going to diminish it pretty quickly. I think it depends on what the actual rate it is, but to me, I wouldn't go more than about 15 minutes or 20 minutes just to top somebody off, because you're going to be draining your own phone. Not only you're putting the charge into them so they can use it, but there's the inefficiency of transferring it as well. That's just going to make both phones heat up, and that's something you're going to lose and you're not going to get back. So
yeah, so that, and I think efficiency is really the name of the game here. The user experience is pretty cool. Just to be able to be on a run, stop somewhere for a coffee, let's say, and you want to charge your earbuds while you're sitting down. It's really cool to be able to do that with your phone. But there's a cost, and that cost is your battery life. So the solution to make both the user experience and the cost small is to have high efficiency. Let's talk for a second about the different technologies that can be used, like Qi technology or NFC technology that can be used to charge devices. And let's talk about the efficiency of those different options.
Okay, well, again, it sort of depends on, if you look at a Qi receiver, typically a phone battery is designed to be ultra thin. So it's going to have a technology behind it that is going to optimize that. Typically, that's not the best wireless transmitter coil, because those that you normally see in a standard Qi certified charger is going to use a unique kind of coil known as Litz wire, which is much thicker. It's like a small little rope, and it's designed to minimize skin effects, and it's designed to optimize efficiency. You're not going to get that on your phone side because the frequency is too low. When you go to higher frequencies like NFC, as you were saying, you're actually in better shape, just because you can have a much smaller coil, and it can be better optimized for that power transfer.
Yeah. Well, I think about phone construction, which you're talking about here, and there's never been Litz wires that I'm aware of in phones. There are sometimes magnet wires, just single strand or bifilar style wires, but those are still thick. They're also pretty inconsistent. So your tolerance goes, you have tolerance problems. But I think the thickness is the biggest thing there. On the other hand, we know there's a ton of flex PCB technologies for antennas and phones. And so Qi receivers are now all based on flex PCB technology. NFC coils, or both transmitters and receivers, are based on flex PCB technology. The difference is Qi transmitters are based on Litz wire technology. And so if you want to turn your phone into a transmitter, you're probably better off using the type of manufacturing technology, flex PCB, that fits the technology base, which is NFC. So I think that's a really interesting, just kind of looking at it from a mechanical perspective and a stack up perspective, just understanding the advantage there with NFC technologies because the inherent antenna structures using Flex PCB lend better to that.
Yeah, and the frequency, 13.56 versus typically 100 kilohertz or so. You're talking about a couple hundred times higher in frequency. As a result, in terms of the inductive charging side of it, you have a much simpler design for a fairly simple coil to generate those magnetic fields. 100 kilohertz is fairly low. There's some benefits to doing that, but then there's some downsides to doing that as well. I think using the phone as a wireless charger, NFC is really a better way to go.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where I believe phones will be going in the near future to enable the receivers. So phones will have the NFC direct charge transmitter technology in them. And then we're going to have a whole host of devices. So what I'm excited for are wearable devices, watches and wristbands. I'm excited for hearables, which it's kind of a subcategory of wearables, but earbuds are really important to the future in terms of AI assistance, in terms of voice command, in terms of not having to stare at your screen all the time. So we're going to be wearing these more. So it's nice to know that you can charge them on the go without having a case. And I think that's going to be huge. And I think styluses, for some users, they still love their styluses, and active styluses with batteries in them are needing to be recharged. And I think being able to just stick it on the back of your device that you're using it on is a really elegant solution. Am I missing any categories, or do you think those are the kind of the big categories for these sub 3-watt devices that are going to be able to charge in the back of a phone?
I think you've kind of hit the main ones, but again, innovation is always out there. So you just leave the raw materials out there to let people go ahead and figure out, saying, hey, here's a new idea of that I can build on. Stylus is a sort of an interesting thing because as I call them electronic pens I just think of my kids, you taking notes basically at school now, and they use, devices like iPads and use Apple pens for taking notes. And the nice thing about that is it's, us, normal people or older people, we write things down, and it's nice to be able to convert it with, to, a typewritten kind of a text or something fairly easier. You can store it in many different ways. You can email it very quickly. That, the old paper thing just isn't the same way. So again, it's another area for innovation. The software is going to get improved over time, but having something like a stylus is an area of innovation that it's just going to grow over time because people are getting so comfortable with this, the electronic devices and what they're capable of doing. You've already got a touch screen on the phone as well, so it makes perfect sense.
Jim, I'm 100% confident that we are going to see stylus charging on the back of phones before we see your lab notebook converted into a digital tablet style. Other people that don't know you as well don't realize how many pieces of paper you go through to scribble down your thoughts and your notes. And it's one of the reasons we have so much prolific invention coming out of NuCurrent, but yep. I'm confident that you're going to stick with paper for a long time.
Yeah, I'm an old dog, can't learn too many new tricks that quickly. So, yep.
Yeah. Well, device to device charging is certainly the wave of the future. I'm very excited about being a big part of doing it. Leading the way, creating the devices that are doing it. And I think that if you're a device company product manager or otherwise develop new products, this is certainly something that you should be keeping your eye on, because as Jim said, there are some obvious applications for using a phone to charge earbuds or using a phone to charge a fitness tracker. But the real innovation on the device side is going to come. What devices can you now create that might not even exist before, but now that you're walking around with a power supply all the time, what can you create that can leverage that power supply to do brand new things? So it's really exciting, and I would challenge the designers and the product owners out there to keep your eye on that one.
It's fun time to be in electronics.
Absolutely.